if you were to go to any internet website, so let's say, for example, you went to Amazon.com, yeah, and you're looking through the catalog and you're interested in a particular product. So you click on the product, you read through the description, and also you would notice that sometimes Amazon says there are only 5 left in stock. Yeah, please order now. So the question is, for any company, yeah, how do you actually know how much is in stock? How much is available that can be sold? It's a slightly different question of how much is in stock and how much that could be sold. So if I were to go to any warehouse and I walk down to the storage area of a particular material. So let's assume I go down to the warehouse, I look at a particular material, and I count how many there are. So let me just let's assume I have a total here, and the total is like a big pool, or in the bin, for example. I have a total amount of physically. Uh, I have a total amount of 100. So let me make that here. Total amount of 100. So it could be easy to say I could have 100 quantities that could be sold to the customer. But when I look at that 100, I notice that a certain portion of it, let's say some of it, when I look further, I notice, I have some that are in QI stock, i.e., they're in quarantine, they cannot be sold to the customer. It's not available to be sold. So out of my 100, I have 20 that's in quality status and cannot be sold. Then when I investigated further, I looked at some of the other stock, I noticed that some of it now are from customer returns. So the customer has returned the product, and obviously I don't want to resell a return product. Let's say I have 10 of those. So now you can see out of that 100 stock, I can only sell 70. So 70 is left. So when I look again, I look through the system, and then I notice that, okay, out of that 70, a number of stock has already been allocated for deliveries. They've been already assigned to deliveries, and let's say the quantity is 20. Yep. So now again, I find that the total available that could be sold has been lowered. Now, again, when I checked the stock, I found out that another portion has already been allocated to sales orders. So 30 has been allocated to the sales order. So as you can see here, I have some stock that's in different statuses, some stock that has already been allocated. So when I look again at my calculation, I say that I have here 100. I take away 30 from a sales order because they cannot be allocated, 20 from deliveries, 10 from returns that I cannot sell, and 20 from QI status. So that means out of that 100, I only have 20 left that I can reliably allocate towards a sales order. Yeah, so I have 20 left that can be sold to a customer. Or what we can say, in other words, I have 20 left. I have 20 available that I can promise to the customer. or in SAP terms, it's the phrase is called available to promise stock, or ATP stock. Yeah, and what this means is, while physically I might have 100, I might only have 20 left because others have been allocated. So in this video, we'll have a look at the rules of ATP, and we'll also look at how it is working. Yeah. Also in this video, we will also have a look at how incoming stock, or stock that we know is coming in, has an effect on ATP. And what I mean by this is, for example, let's say in the next hour or so, I'm going to get some stock from production. And I know that the stock is good and I can sell it. So while physically I don't have some at the moment, I have in an hour's time I will get a quantity of 10 from production, and that means that I can sell that to the customer even now because I'm going to ship it 5 hours later. And let's say, for example, in another 2 hours, I'm going to get some stock, let's say from another plant. So another plant is sending me also some quantity, and let's say that quantity is 10. So because I'm going to ship all orders later in the day, and I know that by that time I need to ship, these 20 will have already arrived, I can also say I have 20 plus 10 plus 10 that is going to be in stock by the time I need to ship it. Okay, so all of these concepts of the difference between physical stock and what can be allocated to sales orders, to deliveries, what can be included in the ATP stock, we'll have a look in this video. So now let's have a look at the ATP process itself, and let's see how it affects the sales orders, how it affects the delivery, and the overall logistics in the order to cash process. So as you can see here, a sales order is created, and immediately after the sales order created, we do an ATP check. And what it means by doing an ATP check is we then check to see on a particular day, is there any material that can be assigned to the sales order. Based on this, we then will calculate to see if we can deliver on time based on when the material is available. So we check the day and we ask the question, can the material be delivered on time? If it's yes, we update the schedule line, and if it's no, we actually will redetermine the delivery date based on the ATP value, and we will update the schedule line with the update. We'll then save the sales order. As part of, we will also see in another video a concept called rescheduling, which is taking all the open orders, looking at some priorities, and redetermining the delivery date based on the current stock levels. Don't worry about this, we will have a look at rescheduling in detail later on. We'll also look at how we do ATP at the delivery creation time, because obviously there might be a lag between the time you create the sales order and create the delivery. It might be you want to rerun ATP again when you create the delivery. We'll have a look at that also in this lecture. Having looked at the concept of ATP and how it works in our process, let's now have a look at how this ATP will work in SAP. Now let's have a look at a concept called the availability rule, or the ATP rule. And the ATP rule is just it's just a set of rules that says what should be taken into consideration when determining the ATP stock. So items such as sales orders, deliveries, purchase orders, purchase requisition, stock transport orders. So this rule says take these into consideration and do not take into account others. The value is stored on the MRP3 view on the material master, and is also known as the availability check field. The official name is a check group for availability check. And we will have a look at this when we look at the material master. The value is copied from the material master into the sales order when it's created. There's a checking rule which is hard coded in SAP, and for sales orders the checking rule is A and delivery is B. So the combination of the checking group, which is on the material master, and the checking rule will determine the various factors to consider when looking at ATP quantities. To put it in other words, the checking group on the material master and the type of document that you have will determine what is taken into consideration when determining ATP quantity. So for example, if I had a checking group of 01 and my document was a sales order, I might take certain things into consideration. For example, I might take into account production orders, and if it was for the same checking group but a delivery, I might only take into account planned orders. As an example, we'll have a look at this in more detail in a minute. Now let's have a look at how all of this kind of ties together in SAP. Here is a standard sales order that I have created, and if I were to go to the item and I go to the schedule line, you can see here that the system has committed to deliver to the customer a quantity of 10 on the 11th of September. If I were to drill down some more, I can see that the delivery date to the customer is on the 11th. The goods issue date, i.e. the date in which the material must leave, is on the 10th, and the material availability date is on the 9th. That means that the material must be available on the 9th in order for the system to load it on the 10th and in order for us to ship it on the 11th. And I just wanted to clarify, when I say ship it on the 11th, I mean do the goods issue, which is an SAP term, which you can see here. We do this on the 11th. We will have a look at how these dates are calculated later on in the video. Now if I were to go to availability, as you can see here, this is the availability screen with the availability check of 02 and the checking rule of A, which means sales orders. As you can see here, I have physically 88 in stock. I have 50 in storage location SL01, and I have the balance in 0001. However, my ATP quantity is 73 because when I open up, I have one sales order, two sales orders, one for 5 and one for 10. So 88 minus 15 gives me available quantity of 73. This simulated requirement of 10 represents the current sales order that I'm in, so we just don't double count because that sales order already exists. We're not double counting it. This is done so that if you ever were to just create a sales order without saving it, that simulated requirements would represent that unsaved sales order. So what I want you to see here and to understand is I have physically 88, but I have only 73 available to my customers. That is the ATP quantity. Let's have a look at the scope of check, which is the rules. And as you can see here, check 02, checking rule A. So checking rule, we have quite a few here. We'll have a look. As I said before, A is sales orders, D is delivery, and here it says what should be taken into account and what inbound and outbound movements should also be taken into account. In further lectures, we'll have a look at how all of these rules are, and we'll have a look in detail what all of these rules mean. For now, just understand that the ATP and how it is in the system. So now, if we go back to the sales order, let's have a look at the material master, and let's have a look at the MRP2. No, it's actually MRP3, my mistake. Let's have a look at the MRP3, and as you can see here, there is the availability check 02, which we saw in the sales order when we had a look at the ATP. So just to repeat again, so make sure it's clear, the availability check comes from the material master, and the checking rule is hard-coded: A for sales orders, B for deliveries. And those two combined says what should be taken into consideration, what's in and what's out. So in closing, we've seen the concept of ATP, where it lives in our order to cash flow, and how it behaves in SAP. In our next few videos, we'll have a look at how SAP implements the ATP in detail, how it captures it, and the configuration of ATP.